and I am going to introduce to you our speaker today. Katie is with National Cooperative Leasing. They work with government agencies and public education and have a lot of unique programs. She has been working with the government sales for quite some time. I'll let her speak to that. But Katie has agreed to come on and speak with us today. And so, Katie, I'm going to go on mute, and I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Yeah, so my name's Katie Vangsness. I'm an account executive here at National Cooperative Leasing, where my primary focus is on the park and recreation-related equipment and services, so fitness equipment, fits in there. NCL specializes in public sector financing through vendor partnerships. So I spend a lot of my day educating and training sales teams like you all on the benefits of utilizing a municipal financing option when presenting to those public agencies. Today's presentation is going to focus on the tax-exempt municipal lease financing. And how you as a sales team can utilize it and hopefully close more deals. So I'm going to start off by taking everyone back to our elementary school days with the 4 W's, the who, what, where, and when. You can give the next slide. So the who can utilize this and who are we focusing on today? It's any public agency, states, counties, cities, and then any public education, both K through 12 and higher education. They're able to take advantage of this type of structure that I'm going to talk about today, and that's regulated by the IRS. Next slide. So what? This is the official term is the tax-exempt municipal lease purchase agreement, which is a very long name, but it's most commonly just tax-exempt muni lease is what you'll hear it referred to as. Next slide. Where can it be used? Public agencies and education and municipalities use this nationwide. They use this type of financing every day. Every once in a while we'll run into a jurisdiction that has special regulations on the tax-exempt municipal lease, but overall it's accepted throughout the U.S. Next slide. And then when, or even why. When do agencies typically decide to lease? And that's when budget comes into play. Next slide. So think back over your last, say, month or so of sales meetings and calls, and how many times did you hear one of these major budget objections from a municipality or education agency? I'd say these are probably the main budget objections that our vendor partners hear. This might be a next year project, or they ask to phase the project. Can we do a portion this year, some the next? Asking to reduce the order until it does fit into their budget, or they just completely push you away and say they do not have any monies budgeted at all. Now think about how you responded or what your response was. Did you just walk away from the deal? Did you maybe mark it on your calendar to check back with them next year, the next fiscal year, to see if now it's in their budget? Or did you end up reducing the order significantly so you could make it fit within their smaller budget? Or maybe you even gave them contact information for your current commercial finance partner. So keep those scenarios in mind as we go on through this presentation. And as we get deeper into explaining the tax-exempt municipal lease, think about how this structure may help you overcome any of these budget objections you see on the screen, how it may have changed one of the deals that you've been thinking about, or maybe some upcoming deals that haven't closed yet. Next slide. Okay, so another quick step back to our school days with a history lesson. So the tax-exempt municipal lease is nothing new. It was developed in the 60s as a way to overcome taxpayer revolts. So before this type of funding, public agencies had to gain public approval through voter referendums for every purchase they wanted to make. So school districts could not acquire school buses without the public's vote. Government agencies couldn't purchase even a replacement copier without an entire community voting. Even county hospitals went without needed lab equipment until the vote could be held. So this obviously was costing a lot of unnecessary money, setting up all of those additional votes and delaying the purchase of essential equipment. So the tax-exempt municipal lease, basically it allows the decision to become a governmental business decision as long as the annual lease payments fit into their annual budget. So it not only does it save them money, but it saves them time. They're allowed to acquire the essential equipment that they need as long as it fits into this year's annual budget. Next slide. So for those of you that aren't familiar with a tax-exempt municipal lease, it's not the same as a traditional commercial lease that I would assume most of you have probably dealt with many times within the fitness industry. This lease is, I'd say, the least expensive form of financing available to government agencies and public education. It's a lease to own, meaning that there's no residual or large purchase option at the end. And actually, the municipality takes ownership of the equipment on day one. It's very similar to a loan with the added benefit of the non-appropriation language. And the non-appropriation language is one of the main or key factors, I guess, in a municipal lease, and that's actually the next slide. But before we move on to that, I just want to quickly clarify what the tax-exempt part means in the title, tax-exempt municipal lease, because sometimes there's confusion. The tax-exempt is referring to the earnings of the financing that are exempt from income tax to, in our case, NCL or the lender. We in turn pass those savings on to the customer in the form of a lower rate, which is often similar to bond financing. So sometimes it's confused that tax-exempt just means that they're exempt from sales tax so they can take advantage. It has nothing to do with sales tax. It's the earnings on the financing are exempt to NCL. So then we're able to give your customers much lower financing rates. Next slide. So now back to the non-appropriation language. So basically your customers, your government agency customers in public education, their budgeting process allocates monies to pay the bills for their coming fiscal year. They do everything, their budgets a year at a time. If your customer decides not to appropriate monies to make their lease payments, the non-appropriation language or clause, they can return the equipment and cancel the remaining payments. So because of this provision, which is included in the document package, the obligation is treated as a current expense rather than long-term debt. So an example, if I have a 5-year agreement with the City of San Diego on some fitness equipment, that 5-year agreement is actually 5 one-year agreements because each year they have to appropriate funds for the lease. So although the non-appropriation language is a major and required component of this agreement, it's not necessarily the biggest benefit to the structure. The benefit is not that they can cancel and walk away basically at any time, although legally they do have that option. The benefits are what come from the non-appropriation language being included in the documents. Next slide. So these that you see up here would be, in our opinion, the biggest benefits of a tax-exempt municipal lease, and most of these are a benefit because of the non-appropriation language. So the first one, voter approval is not required because they aren't obligating future administrations to the agreement, again because of that non-appropriation language. Second, so if you remember my example of the City of San Diego, they enter into a 5-year agreement, which is actually 5 one-year agreements. Therefore, it can be reported as an operating expense and not long-term debt. So if a municipality can avoid entering into long-term debt, if it fits in within their operating budget, they'd much rather do it that way. It allows them to, financing in general just allows them to leverage what annual appropriations they do have by stretching out the cost of the equipment over its useful life, which in turn maximizes their purchasing power. So say your municipality has $25,000 in the budget this year for this specific project. They could actually use that $25,000 to turn it into a $100,000 project. They can use that $25,000 for the annual lease payments and move forward with a much larger project. So maybe they only had it in the budget to replace the cardio equipment, but they needed to replace cardio and strength. Now they can do so and stretch out the cost over a couple years. Also, as a salesperson, it allows you to focus their attention on a monthly or annual payment rather than a large upfront cost, which just, that carries over from the commercial leasing world too. Monthly payments are a lot easier to swallow than a large upfront cost. Financing gives your customer payment control. So there, especially with the tax-exempt municipal lease, there are a lot of options in terms of the repayment, so how often they make their payments, anything from monthly to annual. It allows them to, say, match a desired monthly payment. They maybe have something budgeted for their fitness equipment each year. So NCL as a lender could take that budget and kind of back into the term to make sure that the entire project that they're hoping to get done fits within their budget. We've even done things where they wanted to move forward with the project now, but monies aren't available until the next fiscal year. So we'll push out that first payment up to a year, which allows them to move forward with the project, get that new fitness equipment into the rec center now, and start making payments on it the next fiscal year when they've had time to appropriate the monies. And then also, when NCL writes a tax-exempt municipal lease, we allow our customers to finance 100% of the solution. So that includes all the soft costs, any delivery, install, warranty, or maintenance that are also coming with, so that the municipality doesn't have to plan for a large down payment. And then last but definitely not least, and maybe one of the most important, it allows them to complete the project immediately versus either hoping it's in the budget for next year or phasing it over the next several years. Getting it 100% done now is definitely an added benefit. Next slide. So I think I've said this earlier too, but I have to assume most of you are fairly familiar with commercial leasing on fitness equipment. And I'm sure, with these first couple of slides, you've picked up on how commercial leasing and municipal leasing or financing are different. And they are extremely different. And, just the municipal and education world alone, it's a beast of its own. It has many different regulations that need to be followed, especially when financing comes into play. This slide highlights a couple of the main differences, just so you're aware of what those are. Terms and conditions are obviously going to be different on a commercial lease than a municipal lease. The main clause, I guess, that would be different is that non-appropriation language. That's obviously not included in any commercial lease. And again, the non-appropriation language allows them to cancel the agreement if they're not able to appropriate the funds. Rates are significantly different. So a true tax-exempt municipal agreement comes with lower rates. We have seen some finance companies add a non-appropriation language clause to their commercial lease documents and then submit it with commercial rates, which I guess technically is okay, but for it to be a true tax-exempt municipal lease, it should come with a much lower rate, which is a direct benefit to your customer. So you want to keep an eye out for that. Those lower rates make it a lot more attractive to your municipal customers, especially when they're comparing it to their other option, which may be a bond financing. And municipal leasing in general, especially under, say, like $5 to $6 million, municipal leasing is the less expensive option because bond financing really only makes sense when you get into several million-dollar projects. The obligations, both of the lessee and the lessor, are significantly different when it comes to commercial leasing versus municipal leasing. The title of the equipment, so on a tax-exempt municipal lease, the title is transferred on day one. So the lender would just be a secured party until they've made all of their payments. And then that would be released. Commercial leasing, it depends on the type of commercial leasing, but in general, title is not transferred until the end of the agreement. And then also the accounting or reporting is handled significantly different in terms of their financials when it comes to commercial versus municipal. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier that tax-exempt municipal financing is not anything new, developed back in the 60s, and it certainly wasn't invented by NCL, but we at NCL, or National Cooperative Leasing, do pride ourselves in being experts in this type of financing. Municipal financing is our primary focus, and as such, we've made ourselves experts in all things related to municipalities and education services. Every lender has their niche, and this is ours, municipal financing. Because our focus is the municipal financing world, if you will, we have the ability to be extremely flexible, not only with our repayment structures, like we talked about earlier, anything from monthly to annual, but also with making changes and additions to our documents so that agencies' procurement regulations are met. It's definitely not uncommon for us to get on the phone with the agency's counsel and go through the documents line item by line item and making sure that everything meets their specific regulations when it comes to entering into this type of agreement. And like I said, we do that almost on a daily basis and have the ability to, because this is our niche, versus some of the big time lenders who do commercial and they'll dabble in the municipal business. They just don't have the means to make those changes with every transaction that they do. And our entire process here is set up to be fast, easy, and efficient, not only for your customer, but you as a salesperson. We're here to handle the financing side. We're the experts in the financing. You are the expert in the fitness equipment. So we'll handle the financing side of things, make sure everything moves swiftly, and that you're able to secure that sale as soon as possible. And while we're handling all of the ins and outs of the financing, you can move on to that next sale. as a lender that we also aim to operate as a natural extension of your sales team and become, I guess, an added tool in your toolbox. So as a lender that in general operates through vendor partnerships, we've developed strategic marketing material that can easily be sent out to vendor clients. So this, I'm going to have Adam play this video that we've developed, but not only does it recap what we've talked about today, just to kind of give you another idea of what a tax-exempt municipal lease is, but it'll give you an idea of the type of support we offer our customers, both vendors and dealers and municipal agencies. So you can go ahead and play that. Okay, I hope everyone could hear that. It didn't come through on my end, but I'm sure Adam would be able to post that to your porthole, or the link is embedded in the presentation. If you log onto the presentation afterwards, you can see the video, and you can switch it to the next slide. So we have actually done some work with one of your own, Kelly Naylor and the Design Fitness team in Ohio. We began our relationship working on a municipal rec center that needed financing options. Kelly was nice enough to put into writing how the tax-exempt municipal financing with NCL was able to change his municipal business. And really the reason I put this on the screen is because many of our vendor partners here, we aren't allowed to lease, or we can't lease the second that they bring up a leasing or financing option to municipalities or public education. And that may very well be the case for a traditional lease. But once we're able to speak with the municipality and the municipality learns that it's actually a tax-exempt municipal lease, and so the financing was designed specifically for them and meets all of their regulations, they generally open up a little bit more, and most of the time they move forward with the project. A lot of our customers originally said, we can't lease, but again, once we're able to speak with the procurement official or get down to why they believe that they're not able to lease, we're able to kind of work through and show them the verbiage that in fact does allow them to enter into this type of agreement, which again is more like financing. So it's really important that if you do choose to present this type of an option to those municipalities, that anticipate their first response to be, we're not allowed to lease. And then I guess my next response as a salesperson trying to move forward, a budget objection on a fitness equipment quote that I sent would be, why do you believe you're not allowed to lease? Or would you, would you be willing to speak with a lender that specializes in government financing? And make sure you're aligning yourself with lenders that have that specialty and have that knowledge of the government procurement world, because that will definitely help you in terms of selling more equipment. Next slide. And actually, yeah, Adam, we can, and I'm not sure if anyone has typed in any questions yet, but we can open it up for questions now.
So, no questions yet. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, there is a, somewhere in your program, you'll see a little text box. And if you send me your questions through there, then I can ask Katie and we can keep it quiet enough for everybody to hear the answers to those questions. I had a question that you kind of answered, and that was, that are government agencies, generally aware of this kind of lease, and is it in wide use? So you kind of answered that to say a lot of them are not aware of it. Is that the case? Do you find, what percentage do you find are already aware or not aware of this kind of leasing opportunity that works for them?
I think it's a pretty good 50-50 split. It depends on a couple of things. The first I'd say is how large of a municipality. The larger municipalities are, in general, utilizing it probably 100%, but it may not be on fitness equipment. So maybe they're utilizing it on their school buses or their copiers. Copier leasing is probably one of the most common forms of leasing or equipment, I should say, on a tax-exempt municipal lease. The second would be who you're speaking to. So maybe the rec center director is not aware of the tax-exempt municipal lease, and he was told that we're not able to enter into leases, but the procurement director knows about the tax-exempt municipal lease and knows that it can be applied for equipment acquisitions. So yeah, it just depends on who you're speaking to, if they're going to be knowledgeable about this type of financing, and then if they're using it, it just depends on the size. But we work with municipalities, some of the largest in the country down to little towns and villages. So it's able to be applied no matter how large or small they are.
That makes a lot of sense. You got to find the person, and some of the people we may interact with who just might not be aware of these things.
Right.
Do you find that reference lists of other municipals or government agencies that have used this kind of a program is something that you can use and is helpful to use?
Yes and no. Sometimes those reference lists can be a little overwhelming, and again, depending on who you're speaking to, if you're speaking to that park and rec director or the rec center director, and he was told we're not allowed to lease, but you see that the city of San Diego is on that list and they use tax-exempt municipal leasing, there's still somewhat of a disconnect there. So yes, very helpful if you know that they're already utilizing it, because then at least you can keep pushing to make sure you try to speak with the right person. But in general, procurement officials understand tax-exempt municipal leasing and the regulations that their jurisdiction has with it. So making sure that you get directly to them, either if that's through your lender, through someone like NCL, or just asking that the park and rec director, or whoever you all are dealing with, sets up that meeting to discover it a little bit more, is probably the most helpful. In terms of...
Is there a public... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, for our vendor partners, a lot of times if we are working with a certain municipality and tax-exempt financing is new to them, we're able to look at our internal system and either, if we really get lucky, we've worked with them in some other scope, so we can give them a reference within their own municipality. Otherwise, in general, cities within a state should have the same procurement laws, so then we can look other transactions we've done within that state and find references for them to reach out to that have done the exact form of financing within their same state. So internally,
so a phone call to you.
Yes.
I was going to say a phone call to you to say, hey, I'm talking to this particular, state, city, municipality. You might be able to find a reference that is very specifically going to help that one sales situation.
Correct. Yep.
Makes sense. Are there any other questions, guys, that you might have, guys and gals? I think this is great information. If you weren't already aware of this, this could most definitely open up some new doors in some markets that maybe you've had difficulty penetrating. It's like any other market, any other sales situation. You got to be talking to the right person about the right information, and then we're to be consultants and educating, and this is a great way for you to be that consultant and to educate some of your customers on opportunities. It's interesting, the copier thing. I don't think most businesses ever own their copiers, or at least they always have them on a lease. Pardon me, most municipalities. It'd be great if we could change the tide and make that same with fitness equipment for these municipalities.
Yeah. Especially with the lower budget allocations for the park and rec type districts. I mean, this type of financing will really allow you to still make that industry still a major player within your own territories and turn it into actual sales.
Well, Katie, that's great information. Most definitely appreciate your time. Do you have, there's not a slide here with your direct information.
The next slide has information on it.
Oh, there it is. All right. Yeah, I wasn't clicking. So here's Katie's information, guys and gals. I would highly recommend that you take this down. I'll be posting this presentation in PDF form on the porthole, and then we'll also be posting this recording on the porthole here in the next 10 minutes or so. So if you want to review this or whatever, and of course you can just reach right out to Katie directly for information or assistance with one of your customers. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this thing. Katie, thank you so much for your time and for your information here. And thank you all who have taken the time to be on this call. We really do appreciate that. I appreciate your desire to continue to grow and sell more equipment. And everybody have a great day. Thanks again.